recap from yesterday. So we're going to do a little bit of a recap. Can everyone hear me? You're right then, yeah? You can't hear me, there's a radio microphone. Speak up a little bit. Okay, so we'll do a little bit of recap of yesterday. And what we are trying to do here, what the purpose of this suttas actually are. So why are we reading this suttas? There should be some point to this, otherwise it's not, there's not much point in being here. So the point of all this is basically to understand the gradual training, to understand the kind of the gradual purification of the mind and the heart. The purpose of this, we started off yesterday by talking about the purification of virtue, right, by body and speech, and then moving on to the purification of mind. One of the things I was showing you yesterday is how this gradual training actually matches almost perfectly with the Noble Eightfold Path. How you start off with the Buddha arising in the world, which is equivalent to right view, right? And then once you hear the teaching of the Buddha, you get right view as well. Then your intention to practice arises. Then comes right action, then comes right speech. And right livelihood comes in there as well. Right livelihood is really part of the idea of right action, right? And then, after right livelihood, the next thing that comes with Noble Eightfold Path is right effort. Right effort, factor number 6 of the Noble Eightfold Path. And this is really what we're talking about now, is right effort. All of the things that we were talking about yesterday, the contemplation of death, the overcoming of anger, right, and developing metta and compassion instead. And today I'm going to talk a little bit about sensuality. All of these things are about right effort. We're training your mind to look at the world in a new way, in a different way. We're trying to overcome the obstacles in the mind, overcome the defilements of the mind. So you can see here how all this whole thing works towards overcoming defilements, towards purifying yourself. What we're doing here is that we are, in a sense, getting ready for the practice of meditation. The next step after right effort in the Noble Eightfold Path is satipatthana, right? It's samasati, right mindfulness. And that is where meditation really begins. So what we do now is we get the mind ready for meditation. And unless the mind has a fairly high degree of purity, meditation becomes very hard and very difficult to do that. So this is what we're doing here. We're kind of getting ready for meditation practice. Many people have been meditating for years and often they haven't been getting very good results. The reason why they haven't been getting good results is because they're not pure enough inside. There isn't enough purity there. There's too many defilements. So whenever you sit down, the mind just runs all over the place, or you fall asleep, or you fantasize about things, and you feel that you're not making any progress, right? If you're not making any progress, it means something is wrong. You have to look at the path in a new way. You have to investigate why isn't it working here. And usually the reason it isn't working here is because too many defilements, too many problems inside of you. So this is all about this, all about getting ready, and eventually we can start meditating. And then, lo and behold, it works. Wow, it's really peaceful, right? Well, that works. It's a wonderful feeling because everything flows along very nicely. So this is where we're trying to get to now. So this is the purpose of all this. I'm not just reading out random suttas just for intellectual curiosity. I'm doing it because these teachings are very beautiful. When you understand them properly, you actually understand what you're supposed to do to make this path work. This is the whole purpose of this. So, that is all I want to say about recapping from yesterday. I think I'm not going to go into any more detail than that. And I just want to get into the suttas themselves. Have a look at what the sutta says. So now we come to things that are a little bit more challenging. The next sutta is a whole series of similes of the dangers in sensual pleasure. And this is not to kind of put you off things in life which are having a a good time. The purpose of this is not to kind of destroy all happiness in life. So we have to understand this in the right way. The purpose of looking at the danger of sensual pleasures is just to remind yourself of the shortcoming of sensual pleasures. When that goes into your mind, you can reflect on it, and gradually what that means is that your mind will start to shift in a new direction. You will have less interest in that area, and your mind will move towards peace and mindfulness instead. So this is the purpose of this. It's not to kind of, it doesn't mean that from now on you cannot enjoy yourself with sensual pleasures anymore. That's not the point of this. The point is just to remind yourself a little bit, so kind of you shift your attention a little bit in life. Maybe you can see things in a new way. That already is very useful. Sometimes people take this the wrong way, and they think that from now on I'm just going to eat bread and drink water and have no fun, never have any entertainment, or having a good time in life. But if you do it that way, you're going the wrong way. It's supposed to be a natural movement of the mind, right? Whereby the abandoning of sensual pleasures happens naturally. It's not something you have to force. It's not something that you have to push yourself to be able to do. It comes naturally because you understand the problem of these things. That's really how it should be. And if it doesn't make any sense to you, if you can't understand it, it's fine, it's okay. Don't force yourself, that is the main point here. Force yourself too much, and the whole path becomes painful and unpleasant. And then, soon enough, you will convert to Christianity, and you will be interested in Buddhism more, right? That's what happens. So, don't do that. Okay. So let's have a look at this sutta. This is called the Potalya Sutta from the Ajahn. And there's a whole series of similes showing the shortcomings of sensual pleasures. So let us have a look at these. Some of these similes they're quite deep, and they have a lot of meaning to them, and it may not be obvious until you look at them carefully to actually see that deeper meaning behind these similes. So this is what the Buddha said. He's speaking to a householder called Potalya, and telling him about these things. Householder, suppose a dog, overcome by hunger and weakness, was waiting by a butcher's shop. Then a skilled butcher or his apprentice would toss the dog a well-hacked, clean-hacked skeleton of meatless bones smeared with blood. What do you think, householder? Will that dog get rid of his hunger and weakness by gnawing such a well-hacked, clean-hacked skeleton of meatless bones smeared with blood? No, venerable sir. Why is that? Because that was a skeleton, well-hacked, clean-hacked, meatless bones smeared with blood. Eventually that dog will reap weariness and disappointment. So too, householder, the noble disciples considers thus. Sensual pleasures have been compared to a skeleton by the Blessed One. They provide much suffering and much despair, while the danger in them is great. Right, so here, we want to remember that when you're looking at this, you're looking at this from the viewpoint of the Buddha. This is how the Buddha views these things, right? It's a very high viewpoint. That is why it's quite different from the viewpoint that we normally regard these things in the world. And you may know that well-known saying in the Sutta, the saying which says that what the noble ones regard as suffering, the ordinary people call happiness. And what the ordinary people call happiness, called suffering, the noble ones call happiness, right? So it's like you're inverting things, you're looking at things upside down. And this is part of the problem here. And this is why these things are so different from what they are when you are coming from a full understanding of these things. So what is happening here? What is the purpose of this simile? Right? So if you imagine you are a dog, right? You are hungry, you like to eat something which sustains you. And somebody throws in a skeleton. The skeleton or a bone, there's no meat, right? But there's a bit of blood. And the idea of the blood here, it gives you a taste, right? It gives you a feeling, okay, this is what it might be like to get some real meat. You get the taste of the blood. And that taste is enough to get craving to become even more powerful, right? So craving becomes more powerful. And then you chew this bone even harder. You get a bit more blood taste. The craving arises again. If you keep on like this, there's always this craving. but there's never any real satisfaction. The taste is there, the taste gives rise to the craving, but you don't get the meat, you don't get the real food which actually sustains you. And this dog eventually he will just go into despair, right? The craving always arising, but never getting any sustenance. And the point is that sensual pleasures are a bit like that. And I'm sure you know that if you look at sensual pleasures carefully. Sensual pleasures, they always give rise to more craving, right? And then you get a bit of, you get your fill, so to speak, of sensual pleasures, and you have a good time, or whatever it is. And then soon enough afterwards, the craving arises again. It's like every time you have a bit of sensual pleasures, it's like that. It's like the itch, it's like scratching an itch, right? You scratch the itch, and then it disappears a little bit, and then it comes back again later on, even more strongly. So notice that it's always how sensual pleasures work. We can never end the craving for sensual pleasures by indulging in sensual pleasures. It's just like the meatless bone to the dog. It's a very powerful simile. So how do you end the craving for sensual pleasures? The reason why we crave for these pleasures because we're feeling there's a lack inside of us, right? We don't feel complete. And we think that these sensual pleasures are going to complete us. We're going to fill up this lack, this sense of emptiness inside them. So does it work? Craving says, yes, if you follow me, if you do what I say, then we'll fill up this emptiness inside. And then you follow the craving, and soon enough the emptiness returns. You have to crave some more, and you follow it again. You have to follow the craving again, and still the same problem arises. So the way to fill up the lack inside is not by following the craving again, it's by finding happiness or finding fulfillment somewhere else. That's what it's all about. And that fulfillment comes through finding a true sense of sustenance, the real need, right? And the real need is the spiritual happiness in life. So when you do acts of kindness, when you do acts of goodness, look at that happiness that comes from that. It's a very different type of happiness that comes from the happiness of indulging in sensual pleasures. The happiness that comes from doing something kind and doing something good, from having a sense of metta and compassion in the world. It feels fulfilling. You don't crave after that. It doesn't give rise to more craving. There's a peaceful, beautiful happiness that comes when you do something kind and good in the world. And notice that it fulfills you. It makes you feel complete. And the more deeply you practice on the spiritual path, the more fulfilling and the more complete you feel inside. And hold inside, the itch which is always there starts to disappear, and you feel complete as a person. You're filling in, I think there's a simile somewhere in the Sutta that the trench is filled in. You're filling in the trench of craving which always is there, and you feel complete for the first time. This is what spiritual happiness is about. This is what the spiritual path is about. You see, it's almost the exact opposite of the worldly kind of happiness. And it's the only happiness which gives rise to this true sense of fulfillment and completeness inside. So this is what this simile of the skeleton is about. Very beautiful simile, right? So stop chewing that bone smeared with blood, right? So this is what it's all about. So please stop chewing that bone and move away from that bone. Try to look inside of yourself whether there isn't some truth in this particular simile. And when you see that truth, you start to move in a different direction towards the things which are truly fulfilling in life. Okay. Simile number one. I really like that simile. It's very powerful, right? It's a very strong simile, but it brings home a point which is very important on the Buddhist path. Okay, let's move on to simile number two. Householder, suppose a vulture, a heron, or a hawk seized a piece of meat and flew away. And then other vultures, herons and hawks, pursued it and pecked and clawed at it. What do you think, householder? If that vulture, heron or hawk does not quickly let go of that piece of meat, would it incur death or deadly suffering because of that? Yes, venerable sir. So too, householder, a noble disciple considers thus, sensual pleasures have been compared to a piece of meat by the Blessed One. They provide much suffering and much despair, while the danger in them is great. Okay, so sensual pleasures are like a piece of meat. So what is the point of this simile, do you think? Sometimes it's good to not, obviously try to think about these things, because when you understand it in your own right by yourself, without me saying, I've been thinking about these similes for 20 years, so it's natural that I should have some understanding of these things. But use your own kind of intelligence, right, and reflect. What does it actually mean then? Then you can give rise to some real insight inside of yourself. So the purpose of this simile, the way I understand this simile, is that in the world there are limited resources, right? There are limited amount of things in the world. Like the amount of sensual objects out there are only so many. And very often we end up fighting over these things, right? We fight over the sensual pleasures in the world. Just like the bird fighting over this piece of meat. And unless the one bird gives up his piece of meat, he will incur lots of problems and suffering because of that. In the same way, for example, you think about children, right? Children fighting over a toy. Right? Oh, I want to use it. No, I want to use it. There's only so many toys. Sometimes you want to use the same toy, and you can only use one toy at a time, and the other child has to wait. But the child doesn't have the patience, right? The child cannot wait. He wants the toy now. Now is not the time for a child. Or there's only one sweet, right? But there's two children. What happens if there's only one sweet for two children? There is a problem, right? There's limited resources, but there is many people who want those resources. And it's also true in adult life as well, right? Often we are fighting maybe to get to the same job, to get the same promotion in life. We're fighting over the same salary increase. We're trying to climb the social ladder, everybody trying to get the attention of the same person at the same time. And when it's our time for our inheritance, and we fight, siblings, brothers with brothers, sisters with sisters, we fight each other to get the inheritance from our parents. How common is that in the world, this fighting in the course of inheritance? It happens everywhere around the globe. Sometimes, the more wealthy the family is, the greater is the blow-up, right? You think that when people are really wealthy, it would be enough to go around to everyone. But no, then they fight even more to get all of that inheritance. Madness, but that's what's happening here. So this is how I understand this. We live in a world with limited resources. Everybody can't be like Bill Gates, right? If everybody was like Bill Gates, what would happen then, do you think? The world would collapse, right? We wouldn't be able to sustain it. And even if everybody was like Bill Gates, we still want more. It still wouldn't be the end of craving anyway. So still would be a problem. So we'd still be fighting over whatever else. So this is what the world is like. So when you realize that, when you realize the limit of these things, you start to move towards contentment instead, right? Okay, what I have is good enough. What is important? Do I really want to fight with my family members over the resources? The beauty of having a family member is having someone you can be close to, someone who can understand you, right? Someone you can talk to, someone you feel a sense of closeness to. You don't want to fight with people like that. The potential of family is to have a place of support, somewhere you can go to when life is difficult or whatever. It's a bit like a refuge, a bit like the Dhamma. Not as high as the Dhamma perhaps, but still a kind of refuge to go to your family. Let's not destroy that because of resources, because of material things of the world. Instead, let's just be content instead. How much more beautiful that is. Let's not fight over these things. But this is the tendency of the mind. It's what craving creates this. It creates this fighting between people. So this is the second simile here. If you want to read about this in more detail in the suttas, there is the well-known suttas in the Ajahn 13 and 14, which I call the suttas on the Shuddha Dukkha Khanda sutta. So the heat of suffering, basically what they are called, those suttas, and they explain how suffering arises from sensual pleasures and everything else in great detail. So that is the simile of the piece of meat, right? Fighting over sensual pleasures in the world. So don't fall into the trap. But again, a powerful sin there. Okay, let's move on to the next one then. Householder, suppose a man took blazing brass torch and went against the wind. What do you think, householder? If that man does not quickly let go of that blazing brass torch, wouldn't that blazing brass torch burn his hand or his arm or some other part of his body, so that he might incur death or deadly suffering as a consequence? Yes, venerable sir, so too, householder, a noble disciple considers thus. Sensual pleasures have been compared to a grass torch by the Blessed One, that provide much suffering and much despair, for the danger in them is great. So, again, the idea here, a grass torch, right? It's like I guess it's this big thing you hold, and you put some light to it, and you can actually see, right? And then you carry it against the wind, not very wise, because all the grass will flow into your face or whatever. The idea here is that the grass torch is useful then, because it gives you light, right? So there's a certain happiness for the grass torch. But then there's also the disadvantage when all the emperors and the sparks hit you in the face or the body, you can see the disadvantage. And this is a very important thing, of course, with sensual pleasures, to understand about sensual pleasures. Sensual pleasures aren't all bad. There is a measure of happiness in sensual pleasures, right? That's why we enjoy it. It's not as if you cannot say that it's all dangerous, all suffering. There is a measure of happiness there. Just like the grass torch gives us a certain amount of light, in the same way, there is an enjoyment in sensual pleasures. It's important to accept that. We can't pretend that there's no happiness there. But the problem is, and this is what the Buddha says in many places, that yes, there is an enjoyment, but the danger is often much greater than the enjoyment. That is where the problem arises. This is what the simile of the grass torch is about. Yes, you enjoy the light, but then you burn your body, right? So what is worse? Is it really worthwhile burning your body just so you can have a light? And the answer is very often must be no, it's not really worthwhile. So this is understanding this is one of the things that the Buddha uses actually throughout the suttas. He talks about the world in three characteristics of all things in the world. There is the enjoyment of something, called the asada in the suttas. The gratification, the enjoyment, the pleasure of anything, right? The pleasure of sensual pleasures, the pleasure of meditation states, the pleasure of certain feelings. Everything can be divided up in that particular way. And then there is the disadvantage of things. So the disadvantage of all these things. And this is called the adinava in the suttas. And the Buddha points out that the disadvantage in the worldly things are always much greater than the pleasure. So you understand the pleasure, you understand how far the pleasure goes, how much pleasure is there in sensuality, you understand the full scope of pleasure. Then you understand the full scope of the danger. Then you compare the two and you say, okay, I better get out of here. And the third aspect is the sarana, which means the escape from these things, because you understand that the danger is greater than the pleasure, and then you want to escape. Right? And this is how this works. These are the three things that you see the Buddha analyzes existence in all the time. The pleasure, the danger, and then the escape. It is a very useful way of looking at the world and looking at existence. And this is what he's doing here. And he's saying that the danger in sexual pleasures is much greater than the happiness you get from it. It's hard to see that sometimes. But to understand that in more detail, let's go on to the next simile, because the next simile is a very strong one, and it's almost hard to fathom how this can be true sometimes, but this gives you some idea of how the Buddha looked at sexual pleasures in terms of suffering. Householders, suppose there were a charcoal pit, deeper than a man's height, full of glowing coals, without flame or smoke. When a man came who wanted to live and not to die, who wanted pleasure and recoiled from pain, two strong men seized him by both arms and dragged him towards that charcoal pit. What do you think, householder? Would that man twist his body this way and that? Yes, Venerable Sir, why is that? Because that man knows that if he falls into that charcoal pit, he will incur death or deadly suffering because of that. So too, householder, noble disciple considers thus, sensual pleasures have been compared to a charcoal pit by the Blessed One. They provide much suffering and much despair, while the danger in them is great. Wow, isn't that almost astonishing when you hear that? It's like a charcoal pit, right? It's like a pit full of embers. It's like being thrown in and being kind of burnt alive. That's basically what they're saying here. And it's very hard to understand this. And the reason why it is so hard to understand it is because it is so completely opposite the way most people view the world. I think most of us here have some idea of what is going on, because we have been on this path and we have investigated these things before, so we can relate to it to some extent. But actually seeing this fully is very, very difficult. And unless you have some very profound experience of meditation, like a really deep state of samadhi, or you have a very deep state of insight, it's very difficult to relate to this. Once you have a very deep sense of samadhi, where you go beyond sensual pleasures completely, then you can start to understand this fully. Before that, it is virtually impossible now. So how can this be? And to understand this, one of the very nice other suttas in the Majjhima Nikaya is the Magandhya Sutta, and you may wish to read this later on. It's Majjhima Nikaya number 75, and you can read it for yourself. And that sutta is also all about the danger in sensual pleasures. And in that sutta, the Buddha compares sensual pleasures. The comparison here is to a leper, right? So a leper, you know what leper is like. Leper is the one who has all these sores all over the body, and sometimes they get so devoured, kind of their limbs start to kind of shrink, and they kind of don't have any fingers on their hands and these kind of things, right? And you know what leprosy is? I think in some countries like India, they still have lepers to this day. And in the Buddha's time, presumably, it was quite common in India to have this particular disease. And when you are a leper, because it itches apparently very, very badly, right? So when there is a fire, you put your limbs into the fire to stop the itching. I think it says in the sutta, you cauterize. Cauterize just means you're burning your limbs in the fire to stop the itching a little bit. And then you feel better, even though it's actually very painful, right? I mean, imagine burning your limb is a very painful thing. But you do that because the burning is much less than the happiness you get, because the body is so painful now. And then the Buddha says, well, imagine that the doctor comes along and the doctor cures the leper. Now everything is fine. No more illness, no more sickness. You're just like an ordinary person. Now, would you still go to that fire and burn your limbs afterwards? There's no way, right? So then the Buddha asked this man, well, is it only now that this fire was hot? Or was it also hot before, when you were a leper and you had this illness? And of course the fire was always painful, right? But before, your perception was distorted. You couldn't see things as they really were because of your illness. And that is what the Buddha, how the Buddha compares sensual pleasures, right? Sensual pleasures are like that. You don't see things rightly then, because there's a distortion in the mind, because you are intoxicated by these things, because we haven't gone beyond the sensual pleasures. You're not able to see them for what they actually are. And you think that what actually is painful is pleasant. That's what I was saying before about the areas. What the areas say are painful in the world, the ordinary people think of as happiness. That is very, very powerful stuff. When I read this, I think, whoa! and you have to have some confidence in this, right? Because I'm a Buddhist, just like everybody here. When you are a Buddhist and you take the word of the Buddha seriously, you think, I can't just dismiss this. I've got to think about this in a serious way. And that is why, to me, it is so powerful, because you do take the word of the Buddha very seriously. So this is why, how the Buddha can talk about sensual pleasures as being like a charcoal pit. So, and this is, there's many ways of understanding why it is a charcoal pit. And one of the ways, and one of the most simple ways, is just simply that if you enjoy sexual pleasures a lot, eventually you end up doing stupid things in life, right? It always ends up that when you give into craving, when you give into these impulses, eventually you end up acting on these things in stupid ways, whatever it is. And all kind of crimes in the world are committed because of sexual pleasures. Crimes of passion, right? People kill each other because of sexual pleasures. Particularly over people, if you are in love with someone and that person kind of slights you or whatever, or your partner has an affair with somebody else. Crimes of passion you kill because your feelings are so strong and you can't stop yourself. It's a very, very common thing around the world. And they say that the majority of murders or killing is not because some evil person kills you because of your money or because they're angry with you. The majority of murders in the world are crimes of passion. It happens within families often. It happens, in very close associated people with you. So all kind of crimes are committed because of sexual pleasures. And because you're committing all kind of crimes, it tends to lead to a bad rebirth in the future, all kind of suffering. This is the most easy way to understand how it is a charcoal pit. But of course, the point of the Buddha, the point of this thing I was saying before, is that if you look at sexual pleasures from a higher level, if you look at it from the point of view of the peace of mind you have in meditation, and the understanding you have as a person who has deep insight, if you look at it from that point of view, then sexual pleasures are a charcoal pit right here and right now. Because of all the craving, right? Because of all the sense of burning inside. The craving is the thing which never makes you feel at peace. It can never make you relax. Always drives you on. Makes you restless. Makes you agitated. You can never really settle down and just feel at ease and relax and just take a breath. That's impossible because craving is driving you around. And so this, in a very real sense, this charcoal pit is actually, we're carrying it with us all the time in our minds, right? It's here with us at almost every moment of the day. And only occasionally, maybe when we feel a bit peaceful, we can see that charcoal pit becomes a little bit less hot. And we feel a sense of ease and a sense of relaxation as a consequence. So this is what it means, that sexual pleasures are like a charcoal pit. Very powerful simile there. So, and it's quite powerful here, right? The Buddha says that and a man comes along who wants to live, who doesn't want to die, who wants pleasure, and who recoils from pain, right? So what it says is that if you want pleasure, you should stay away from sexual pleasures. So maybe sexual pleasure is a bit of a misnomer, maybe it should be called something else. Basically say that if you want pleasure, don't go to sensuality. Okay, anyway, so let's take a short break and do a little bit of meditation, and then we'll continue afterwards. So the nice thing about this particular sutta is that it gives you many different angles, many different ways of understanding sensual pleasures, and each one of these angles is different, but they kind of complement each other, and they give a very complete picture of the Buddhist attitude to these things. So let us move on to the next one. And the Buddha says, householder, suppose a man dreamt about lovely parks, lovely groves, lovely meadows, and lovely lakes, and on waking, and on waking, he saw nothing of it. So too householder, the noble disciples considers thus, sensual pleasures are being compared to a dream by the Blessed One. They provide much suffering and much despair, while the danger in them is great. So it's like a dream, right? Like, it's interesting when you think about life, you think about sensual pleasures. You start off when you're young and you dream about what the future is going to be like, right? You're going to have a nice house, you're going to have a nice partner, a good family life, you're going to have a good career. This is kind of your dream about sensual pleasures, right? And then when you get older, you start to realize things aren't going to work out exactly the way you thought, right? So you start changing the dream. But you still have a dream one way or another. And you dream about something else, maybe about the new car you're going to buy or whatever. But there's always this dream. Sensual pleasure is always somewhere distant in the future. And no matter what you get on the way, there is always going to be a dream about something else, about something more. This is the sensual pleasures. They're always kind of looking into the future. And there's never that satisfaction to be had in the moment. Satisfaction is very short-lived. You get something, and then the dream arises again about something in the future. Always moving on to something else. Always a dream, never really being real, right? There's like an unreality about sensual pleasures. It's almost like it's not really, it doesn't really do anything. It's kind of, an unreality about it, just quite unsettling if you think about it. It's not really, almost as if it isn't really real in a sense. There's a nice sutta in the Samyutta Nikaya, and this is the monk called Samiti. He's the opposite of the time. And there's a deva who comes down to this monk, Samiti, and this deva says to this monk, I think it must have been a female deva or something, probably very beautiful or whatever, and she says to this monk, monk, why you are young? Why are you practicing this life which is all about the future? This is about the future happiness. You're trying to get something for the future. Instead, you can have sensual pleasures right here and right now, right? This deva is like having the function of Mara, trying to trap this monk in a sense, and trying to get him back to enjoy lay life and sensual pleasures. And then Samiti says, no, this life is not about the future. This life is not about pleasures that take time. The monastic life or the spiritual life, that is the life about pleasure here and now. It is sensual pleasures which are always about the future. Right? And it's a very quite a profound saying, quite a deep saying, because we often think, just like that deva, we think that, the spiritual life, we always try to get something far away, but sensual pleasures we can have right now. But actually, it is really the other way around. Because the happiness of sensual pleasures can never really be attained. It's like a dream, right? You're always moving towards something. Craving is never satisfied. Craving never gives you what it promises. Craving promises you satisfaction. It doesn't give you satisfaction. But the spiritual life, if you do something good right here and right now, you feel a sense of ease about that. Craving is actually reduced because that act of goodness right here, right now, leads to peace. It leads to contentment at this very moment, at this very time. So it's actually the spiritual life, the spiritual practice that leads to happiness now, at this time, and not sensual pleasures. So remember that. It's so easy to think that sensual pleasures are what is available right here and now. It's actually the other way around. Satisfaction comes not there, it comes through the spiritual life instead. So again, another beautiful simile about sensual pleasures being like a dream, something which never is really fulfilled, always somewhere in the future. Okay. Can you hear me okay? Is it clear enough? Yeah? Okay, good. So please let me know if I'm not speaking properly into the microphone or whatever. Okay, the next one. Householder, suppose a man borrowed goods on loan, a fancy carriage and fine jeweled earrings, and proceeded and surrounded by those borrowed goods, he went to the marketplace. Then people seeing him would say, "Sirs, that is a rich man. That is how the rich enjoy their wealth." Then the owners, whenever they saw him, would take back those things. What do you think, householder? Would that be enough for that man to become dejected? Yes, venerable sir. Why is that? Because the owners took back their goods. So too, householder, a noble disciple considers thus. Sensual pleasures have been compared to borrowed goods by the Blessed One. They provide much suffering and much despair, while the danger in them is great. So these things are unreliable, right? If we are wealthy today, we might be poor tomorrow. When we come back home tonight, your house may have burned down, it may have been burgled by somebody, some of your favorite possessions may have been taken away. And then you realize the things you had were just borrowed goods, now they have disappeared again. They arise in your life, and then they go. So nothing is ever stable. Everything is always subject to disappear again. You never know whether the things you have today, whether they are going to disappear again. This is even true with friendships, right? It's true with partnerships in life. You may have the most wonderful husband or the most wonderful wife in the world, and suddenly they decide that you're not good enough, and they go off with someone else. Or they die, right? They get ill and sick and they die. And the most wonderful person just passes away right in front of your eyes. And then you understand that that too was just borrowed goods. And also remember what I was talking about yesterday, this idea that when you die, everything has to be left behind, right? All the things that you have striven for in this life, the house you have, the career, the social position, all these material things, all the sensual pleasures, all the relationships, even your own body, right? Even one's own body is like a sensual pleasure in a way. It's like you identify with it, and you look at yourself and you think this is me, etc. Even that has to go. All of that is just borrowed goods for this lifetime. And then when you die, you have to give it all up. How much time? How much do you want to invest in borrowed goods? Do you want to spend your whole life investing in borrowed goods? Do you want to keep painting and refurbishing a house that you are renting from someone else? If you're renting a house from someone else, how much money are you willing to spend on that house to make it look great? It's the owner who will reap the benefits of all the refurbishing you do. And when they kick you out, well then that money has gone down the drain because they will reap the benefits. There's a limited how much money you're going to spend on a rented house, right? And everything in this life is like that. It's always rented. It's borrowed for the time being. And when you die, you're going to have to give it all up. It seems to be yours. It seems to be yours right here and now. But in reality, it's all impermanent. It all has to pass away again. How much effort, how much investment are you willing to give to these things? Instead, what we need to do is invest where it really matters. Invest in the mind, invest in the heart, invest in those things that you can take with you into the future, right? Things that will be there for a long, long period of time. That's where we need to invest. Invest in kindness, invest in compassion, invest in peace, invest in understanding other people, understanding the world as it actually is. That's where we need to invest. So this changes your perspective. Look for what really matters in the world, and then you can actually do something which has long-term benefits, both for yourself and also for the people around you. You become, as I said, a blessing for yourself and a blessing for the world. That sounds quite nice, doesn't it? To be a blessing for yourself and a blessing for the world. I'm sure that we would all like to be that because it's such a beautiful thing to be. So, the simile of the borrowed goods, again, very, very powerful stuff. Okay, let's move on to the next one. And the Buddha says as follows: Householder, suppose there were a dense grove not far from the village or town, within which there was a tree laden with fruit, but none of its fruit had fallen to the ground. Then the man came needing fruit, seeking fruit, wandering in search of fruit, and he entered the grove and saw the tree laden with fruit. Thereupon he thought, this tree is laden with fruit, but none of its fruit has fallen to the ground. I know how to climb a tree, so let me climb this tree and eat as much fruit as I want and fill my bag. And he did so. Then a second man came, needing fruit, seeking fruit, wandering in search of fruit, and taking a sharp axe, he too entered the grove, and saw that tree laden with fruit. Thereupon he thought, this tree is laden with fruit, but none of its fruit have fallen to the ground. I do not know how to climb a tree, so let me cut this tree down at its root, and eat as much fruit as I want, and fill my bag. And he did so. What do you think, householder? If that first man who climbed the tree doesn't come down quickly, when the tree falls, wouldn't he break his hand or his foot or some other part of his body, so that he might incur death or deadly suffering as a consequence? Yes, venerable sir. So too, householder, a noble disciple considers thus: sensual pleasures have been compared to a fruit on a tree by the Blessed One. They provide much suffering and much despair, while the danger in them is great. So they are like fruit in a tree, right? All the sweet fruit, all the beautiful sensual pleasures. You climb up the tree and you just eat yourself and you become intoxicated. You don't know what's going on in the world anymore. You forget about life. Yesterday we were talking about the intoxication of being young, of being healthy, and of life, right? Similar to the intoxication of alcohol. And this is the intoxication of sensual pleasures. You climb the tree of sensual pleasures, you intoxicate yourself, you forget about the dangers in the world. You forget that there are things which are not to be done because you are intoxicated. When you're intoxicated, you forget what is right and what is wrong in the world, and you do stupid things as a consequence. And this is what is happening here. You forget to look around, you forget to look for the dangers, and then someone comes around to cut off the tree at the root, and then you fall down, right, and you might die as a consequence. So this is the problem with intoxication. And we all know people in the world who are addicted to sensual pleasures. It's a very common thing in our world. And that addiction is a state of intoxication. And then you end up doing crazy things as a consequence. And you reap the consequences. So that is the simile of the fruit tree and the dangers of just forgetting about the bigger picture of things and just getting intoxicated on what is straight in front of you. So there you are. So these are all the similes on sensual pleasures, and I think for myself, I always had a hard time. I remember back. I've been a monk for almost 20 years now, but I always remember how difficult it has been often to really understand this concept of the danger of sexual pleasures. Right? I read about the suttas, and I find it hard to really come to grasp it properly. And this is why I find that this particular sutta is very powerful, because it makes it quite clear what is going on. It's quite easy to understand what the problem is with sexuality. So I find this thing very, very useful myself, and hopefully I have been able to bring it across to you to some extent as well, what is happening here. So this is not meant to put you off your food or anything like that. Please continue, please continue enjoying the food, etc. One of the things that is interesting in the suttas is what does a person who does have deep meditation or deep insight, how do they relate to sensual pleasures? Do they hate their food? Do they kind of, what kind of relationship do they have? And this, of course, is an interesting point, because then we get some understanding of what is going on here. And what it actually says in the Sutta is that someone who is an Arya, someone who has deep meditation, when they don't have that deep meditation, how they experience sensual pleasures is actually they experience as a heightened pleasure. For them, even the most basic food is experienced as something very wonderful and beautiful. Even the most basic resting place is considered like a big bed, which is very comfortable, very nice. Even the most basic kuti is like a palace to them, right? But the point is that they aren't able to enjoy these things. The point is they have no craving for them. It is a craving which is the problem. It is a craving which destroys our ability to really appreciate the ordinary things in the world. The craving is where the problem is. And of course, the reason why that someone who is a spiritually accomplished person, the reason why they don't have craving for these things is because they have seen something higher, they have seen something more, right? So yes, they can enjoy the sensual pleasures, but they also understand that actually it is a very limited happiness. There's something much more happy out there, called the deep states of samadhi, called the deep insights into reality. So because they understand that, even though they can enjoy the sensuality to some extent, they will never crave for it, because they understand its lesser nature compared to everything else. So keep that in mind. It means that you should never go around hating your food. You should never go around hating the sensual pleasures. It means that you get a different relationship to them. And that is what really matters. And as that relationship changes, you start to see the world differently. You gain the happiness of the spiritual path instead. That is what this is all about. So please remember this, because otherwise, I know sometimes people get very distraught when they read this kind of suttas and think, oh no, all my happiness, my life has been in vain. What can I do now? It's terrible. The Buddha says this kind of thing. That is the wrong way of understanding this. If you do it like that, then life really does become miserable. So don't create unnecessary misery for yourself, because then all kind of bad things happen as a consequence. Okay, so let us take another short meditation break, and we'll continue the next sutta afterwards. Please use this meditation breaks if you want to walk a bit outside, or you want to go to the toilet, or whatever, please do so. It's nice to stretch one's legs every now and again, so please don't feel shy about that. you've probably heard about the sutta before. It's quite a well-known sutta. The sutta is about the fellow called Brahmali. He was famous in the time of the Buddha for being the one who had the most confidence or faith in the Buddha. And he is the one, you probably heard the story before, he's the one whose parents refused him to go forth. And then he decides to just lie down on the ground, and he says that I will not move from the spot until you allow me to go forth. Right? Either I die right here, or you allow me to go forth. But nice, you know that story, everyone? Yeah? You know the father story? Yeah? It's kind of a nice story. It's very inspiring. It means, wow, this fellow must have so much confidence in the teacher. He's willing to die so he can go forth. It's quite inspiring in some ways. Now, one of the nice things about this sutta is that towards the end of the sutta, there is a conversation between Brahmali and a king called King Kauravya. And this conversation, Brahmali is an arahant at this point, and this conversation is basically teaching the Dhamma to this king, right? And the explanations of the Dhamma are quite beautiful. I always found these explanations quite nice. So not only the story about Brahmali, but also the Dhamma content here is actually quite beautiful. And I really enjoy this particular Dhamma content. And it is basically on the same kind of theme that we are working on now. Getting a basic understanding of the world, thinking about it in a good way, so that we can reduce the defilements and purify ourselves and move forward on the path. So, I will read the first part here probably fairly quickly. There's quite a long extract here that I have chosen. It's very long, yeah, okay. So, anyway, this is about this meeting between King Kauravya and Brahmali. So King Kauravya addressed his gamekeeper thus: "Good gamekeeper, tidy up the Migashira garden so that we may go to the pleasure garden to see a pleasant spot." It's a strange translation, to go and see a pleasant spot. I think it basically means so we can go out and enjoy ourselves. That's basically what it means. "Yes, sir," he replied. Now, while he was tidying up the Migashira garden, the gamekeeper saw the venerable Brahmali seated at the root of a tree for the day's abiding. The day's abiding is like the meditation you do after the meal. When he saw him, he went to King Kauravya and told him, "Sire, the Migashira garden has been tidied up. The clansman Brahmali is there, the son of the leading clan in this same Tulakotita, of whom you have always spoken highly. He is seated at the root of a tree for the day's abiding." Tulakotita is like the name of the local town. "Then, good gamekeeper, enough for the pleasure garden for today. Now we shall go and pay respect to that master Brahmali." Then, saying, "Give away all the food that has been prepared there," King Kauravya had a number of state carriages prepared, and mounted one of them, accompanied by the other carriages. He drove out from Tulakotita with the full pomp of royalty to see the venerable Brahmali. He drove us as far as the road was passable for carriages, and then he dismounted from his carriage and went forward on foot, with the following of the most eminent officials to where the venerable Brahmali was. He exchanged greetings with the venerable Brahmali, and when this courteous and amiable talk was finished, he stood to one side and said, "Here is an elephant rug. Let Master Brahmali be seated on it. There is no need, great king, sit down. I am sitting on my own mat." King Kauravya sat down on a seat made ready and said, this is where the Dhamma begins. "Master Brahmali, there are 4 kinds of loss. Because they have undergone these 4 kinds of loss, some people here shave off their hair and beard, put on the yellow robe, and go forth from the home life into homelessness. What are the 4? Loss through old age." Old age is the correct translation, not aging. through sickness, loss through wealth, and loss through of relatives. So this is the king saying that this is the reason why people go forward, right? You get older, so there isn't much to live for in the world anymore. You're getting old, so that's when you go forward. Or you're ill, so again, there isn't much to do in the world. Or you have no wealth, so you might as well become a monk, right? That's basically what it's saying. Or you have no family, so again, there's nothing really to live for in the world. This is the kind of idea that some people had in those days of why you would go forward. I'm not going to read all this out because it's a bit too much. But of course the point here is that Matapala, he was young, right? He wasn't old. He was in good health, there was no sickness. He came from one of the most wealthy families, right? And his relatives were still around wanting to support him. So he had all of these things, and still he became a monk, right? So what is going on? The king is puzzled. How can anyone go forward and become a monk when you have everything that everyone ever wants? It's like weird. What is happening? How come he did this? And this is what the next paragraphs are all about here. It's the king asking Matapala about this. And then in paragraph 34, go down a little bit, paragraph 34, then the king summarizes what he has been saying, and he says, Master Matapala, these are the 4 kinds of loss. And then he says, Master Matapala has not undergone any of these losses. What has he known? What has he seen or heard that he has gone forward from the home life into homelessness? What is the secret, right? How can people go forward when everything is okay in the ordinary life? And then Matapala responds in paragraph 35. He explains the teachings that he heard by the Buddha, which then made him decide to become a monk. And he says, Great King, there are 4 summaries of the Dhamma that have been taught by the Blessed One who knows and sees, accomplished and fully awakened, knowing and seeing and hearing those I went forward from the home life into homelessness. What are these 4? Life in any world is unstable. It is swept away. This is the first summary of the Dhamma, taught by the Blessed One who knows and sees, accomplished and fully enlightened. Knowing and seeing and hearing this, I went forward from the home life into homelessness. Life in any world has no shelter and no protector. This is the second summary of the Dhamma, taught by the Blessed One who knows and sees. Life in any world has nothing of its own. One has to leave all and pass on. This is the third summary of the Dhamma, taught by the Blessed One who knows and sees. Life in any world is incomplete, insatiate, the slave of craving. This is the 4th summary of the Dhamma, taught by the Blessed One who knows and sees. Great King, these are the 4 summaries of the Dhamma, and having known and seen and heard these, I went forward from the home life into homelessness. Then the king replies, Master Matapala said that life in any world is unstable, it is swept away. How should the meaning of this statement be understood? What do you think, great king? When you were 20 or 25 years old, were you an expert rider of elephant, an expert horseman, an expert charioteer, an expert archer, an expert swordsman, strong in thighs and arms, sturdy, capable in battle? When I was 25 years old, Master Matapala, I was all these things, and sometimes I wonder if I had supernormal powers then. I do not see anyone who could equal me in strength. What do you think, great king? Are you now strong in thighs and arms, as sturdy and as capable in battle? No, Master Matapala. Now I am aged, burdened with years, advanced in life, come to the last stage. My years have turned 80.
Sometimes I mean to put my foot here, and I put my foot somewhere else. Great King, it was on account of this that the Blessed One who knows and sees, has accomplished and fully awakened, said, life in any world is unstable, it is swept away. When I knew and saw and heard this, I went forward from the whole life into homelessness. It is wonderful, Master Prabhupada. It is marvelous. Well, this has been expressed by the Blessed One who knows and sees, accomplished and fully enlightened. Life in any world is unstable. It is swept away. It is indeed so. So, the Pali for this phrase, life in any world is unstable. It is swept away. Quite literally, it is saying that the world is unstable. The world is swept away. So the word world here has like a meaning that almost like everything is swept away, right? Everything is unstable. In particular, human beings are unstable. So anything we are, anything we rely on in the world is always changing, always becoming otherwise. And this is like a very profound truth. We can see this to some extent at the very beginning. We can see that things are always changing on a superficial level. But the point is that it goes very deeply that things are always changing. There's nothing in the world you can hold on to. There's nothing you can grasp. There's nothing you can attach to. Why? Because it's always changing. As soon as you attach to something, you start changing and becoming something else, right? There's no ground you can stand that the cart will always be pulled out from under your feet. You keep stumbling and falling over because you're attached to those things that actually are unstable. It's like everything is always moving, everything is always shaking, and nothing can last for any period of time. And this is what Pratapala and the Buddha, of course, are pointing out here. Is this instability in the world. So why is that a problem? Sometimes we think, we will just go with the flow. And of course, going with the flow is very useful. But there's something very profound, there's a very profound problem happening here. And that profound problem is the sense of self inside of us. We have a sense of self, right? What does it mean to have a sense of self? To have a sense of self means that we take certain things to be permanent. That's what it means. That's the very definition of having a sense of self. So you have a sense of self means that there are things that we want to be stable. There are things that we are desperately need to be stable. Because otherwise our sense of self is undermined. We are no longer, we cannot grasp onto things as ourselves if they change, right? So what happened to myself? It's disappearing. It's going down the drain. What a difficult thing that is to take. Not only that, but when you have a sense of self, you also have a sense that you own things, right? Ownership comes with the idea that I am someone inside of me. And when you have ownership again, you rely on things being stable. This is my stuff. I don't want it to disappear. You don't want your house to burn down, right? What a terrible thing it is when your house burns down. And recently, I don't know if these things are probably also on the news in Malaysia. These things usually go on the news around the world. But we recently had some bad fires in Perth. And those bad fires, many people lost their houses because the houses just burned down. Perth is very, very prone to bushfires because it's so dry and so hot during the summer. Sometimes the temperature goes up to 40 degrees and it doesn't rain for 3 or 4 months at all, right? If you think you have a drought in Malaysia, you should come to Perth and see what it's like in Perth. It's really very different. And then, it is very dangerous. If you light the fire in the wrong place, there's a bit of wind, it just takes off like that, right? Very, very dangerous. And then people's houses burn down. When you see the headlines in the papers, how people's houses burn down, massive headlines, you see all these people grieving and crying because they lose everything in their life. House is gone, all the possessions are gone. Sometimes people die in these fires. This is what it's like when you lose the things. You think they are permanent. You forget that they can burn down at any time, right? There's a lack of understanding, deep understanding of the Buddhist teachings. So this is what is going on here. As long as we have a sense of self, we rely on things, certain things being permanent. If they're not permanent, it becomes very hard for us to deal with this. This is the problem. the nature of the world is one way. The nature of the world is everything is unstable, always changing. And the way we look at things is the opposite. We have a sense of self. We grasp onto things. We rely, we crave stability. We want things to be permanent when they are otherwise. You can see the problem there, right? This is a very profound problem. And this is exactly why the Buddha teaches us to penetrate the sense of non-self. So we are able to align our mental attitude, our way of looking at the world, is aligned with the way the world actually is. Right now, it is at cross purposes. The way we look at things is one way, the way the world is the exact opposite. If you become an Arya, that is when you become aligned, and the things go together, the way you look at the world and the way the world actually is. So you can see the profound problem there. So this is why this idea of impermanence is so useful to reflect on sometimes. Remember this, everything is impermanent, things are always changing. And if you see that, you don't hold on so hard anymore. You start to let go, and you start to develop your mind, and you start to find security somewhere else. You start to find that sense of purpose in life and other things, just by doing good, by being kind, and then reaping the happiness that comes from that. That is where you find your purpose instead. So very useful thing. And again, if you use this in the right way, it leads to a reduction in craving, a reduction in desire, a reduction in ill will, because you actually understand how the world functions. You don't get upset when these things get taken away from you. So again, it moves in the right way, moving forward on the spiritual path. This is what this is all about. So this is the first reflection here, and you can see how powerful these reflections are when you understand them fully. Okay, first one. Then we move on to the second reflection. Master Ratapala, there exists in this court elephant troops and cavalry and chariot troops and infantry, which will serve to subdue any threats to us. Now, Master Ratapala said, life in any world has no shelter and no protector. How should the meaning of this statement be understood? What do you think, Great King? Do you have a chronic ailment? I have a chronic wind ailment, Master Ratapala. Sometimes my friends and companions, kinsmen and relatives stand around me thinking, now King Kauravya is about to die. Now King Kauravya is about to die. What do you think, Great King? Can you command your friends and companions, your kinsmen and relatives? Come, my good friends and companions, my kinsmen and relatives, all of you present, share this painful feeling, so I may feel less pain. Or do you have to feel that pain yourself alone? I cannot command my friends in this way, Master Ratapala. I have to feel that pain by myself. Great King, it was an account of this that the Blessed One who knows and sees, accomplished and fully awakened, said, life in any world has no shelter and no protector. And when I knew and saw and heard this, I went forward from the home life into hopelessness. It is wonderful, Master Ratapala, it is marvelous how well this has been expressed by the Blessed One who knows and sees, accomplished and fully awakened. Life in any world has no shelter and no protector. It is indeed so. So this is the problem in life, right? In the end, we have to take responsibility for our own life. We have to deal with the consequences of our karma. We have to deal with the consequences of being human beings. Sometimes suffering, sometimes having a hard time. We cannot really share the problems in life with anyone else. Maybe we can get a little bit of comfort, and maybe other people can give us some good advice. But in the end, we have to take responsibility, and we have to learn to deal with things in the right way. If you have the right mental attitude, it's amazing how you can deal with the most difficult situations in life. If you have the wrong mental attitude, it doesn't help that much. Even if other people comfort you, even if other people try to support you, they cannot support that much because your attitude is wrong, right? It was
Yesterday, someone was asking this question, that someone who had just been in an operation in the hospital, they came out of the operation being angry and upset because of all the pain or whatever, right? What can you do with that sort of person? Their attitude is wrong. That's why they're suffering so much. And there isn't really anything you can do about it. You can comfort them a little bit, but in the end, their attitude is the problem. So it is up to us to change. It is up to us to take responsibility for our own lives. Then we get the results. Then we stand a chance of making something wonderful and beautiful with our lives. So this is the important point here. And this means that it's actually very freeing. It's a very beautiful thing. And so many people in the world, they believe in religions that aren't theistic, where there's a God out there, right? God is going to help us. God is going to sort everything out. And then at the end of our lives, when we die, we will go to God. And God will kind of support us, no matter what we do. As long as we believe strong enough, God will be there. It's a nice idea. But what if you die and there is no God? What happens then? You have a problem, right? And then perhaps you haven't lived to the best of your ability, and then you come there and, sorry, there is no God. Now you have to suffer the consequence instead of your actions, right? It's a bit of a letdown if you spend your whole life believing in something, and then that something isn't actually there to support you. And this is what the Buddha says, there isn't anyone like that out there. There isn't any kind of all-encompassing father or perhaps mother in the universe who looks after you and makes sure that it will always be okay. It would be wonderful if it was like that, right? We can be like naughty children our whole life and just do all kind of bad things, and then mother comes and says, okay, no problem, you're just a naughty child. Unfortunately, it isn't like that. Unfortunately, we have to take responsibility, and we will have to reap the consequences of how we live our life. Initially, it's scary, right? I am responsible. Sometimes we feel too small and too vulnerable. I am responsible. Hell, I'm not sure if I can take this kind of responsibility. That's how it feels initially. People get a bit afraid when they hear about karma and rebirth and these kind of things. But actually, it is very liberating. It is much more dangerous to have some kind of God figure or some kind of person in your life, a guru perhaps, or anyone in your life who takes full responsibility for you, and you are not responsible for your own life. It's dangerous because that thing is always unreliable. That guru may be a fraud. That guru may one day turn out to do all kind of crazy things, and you know that they actually didn't have any insight at all. That God that you believe in, they turned out not to be there, right? There's so many dangers, and then you place your life into the hands of this. Are you really willing to do that? It's too dangerous, you can't do that. And the Buddha specifically says there isn't such a thing, it doesn't exist. There is no protector, there is no final shelter in this world. And then it becomes liberating when you look at it that way. Instead of placing your life into the hands of something which is unreliable, you take responsibility. How free that actually is. You are now in charge. There isn't some kind of random will in the universe which can kind of condemn you or to... What if you're not a Christian, right? A Christian God will say, you have been very naughty, you didn't believe in me, right? That's what the Christian God might say. Well, that is terrible, right? What if that is true? It is kind of very bad. What if the God in your universe is a bad God? There's no guarantee that the God is a good God. What if the God is bad? What if the God does all kind of naughty things, right? Again, do you want to place your life in the hands of the God who is naughty and bad? And sometimes when I think about the theistic religions, I find it very hard to believe that a God would create the universe that we are in. Can you really believe that God would create this universe? A universe where there is so much suffering, and so much trouble, so much pain, and so many things that go wrong all the time. It's not always the fault of human beings. Sometimes it's just the fault of natural disasters and things happening. So the problem with this idea of God, to me, is it's too dangerous. And if people want to believe in that, of course, it is really their choice. But really, if you think about it very carefully, in my opinion, it is not an acceptable solution to life to believe in these things. There's too much danger there, and this is what the Buddha is pointing out in this kind of simile. So take responsibility for yourself. That really is what it comes down to. And that is the
what you read into this particular expression of the Dhamma. Okay, so let's do a little bit more meditation and we'll continue listening afterwards. So, we are on the Brahmali Sutta. These are the four summaries of the Dhamma. So you can see that the nice little summaries of the Dhamma have so much content in them. So, now we move on to the third summary of this Dhamma. And the king says to the Venerable Ratapala, he says, Master Ratapala, there exists in this court abundant gold coins and bullion stored away in vaults and lofts. Now Master Ratapala said, life in any world has nothing of its own, but has to leave all and pass on. How should the meaning of this statement be understood? What do you think, great king? You now enjoy yourself provided and endowed with the 5 chords of sensual pleasure. But will you be able to have it in the life to come? Let me likewise enjoy myself provided and endowed with the 5 types of sensual pleasure. Or will others take over the property while you will have to pass on according to your actions? I cannot have it thus of the life to come, Master Ratapala. On the contrary, others will take over this property, while I shall have to pass on according to my actions. Great King, it was on account of this that the Blessed One, who knows and sees, accomplished and fully awakened, said, life in any world, or anything in the world, has nothing of its own. Beings have nothing of their own. One has to leave all and pass on. And when I knew and saw and heard this, I went forth from the whole life into homelessness. It is wonderful, Master Ratapala, it is marvelous, for well that has been expressed by the Blessed One who knows and sees, accomplished and fully awakened. Beings have nothing of their own, they have to leave all and pass on. It is indeed so. So, there you are. This is the thing we have been talking about a lot already. The idea that you have nothing, everything in the world is like the idea of the borrowed goods, right? You borrow stuff and you have to pass on. It's like the idea of the death contemplation. You know that you have to leave everything behind. This is the same kind of idea that we see again. So, everything has to be left behind and we have to pass on in accordance with your actions. I don't think I will say anything more about that because we have been talking about this a lot already. Then we come to the last one. Now, Master Ratapala said, life in any world is incomplete, insatiate, the slave of craving. How should the meaning of that statement be understood? What do you think, great king? Do you reign over the rich Kuru country? Yes, Master Ratapala, I do. What do you think, great king? Suppose a trustworthy and reliable man came to you from the east and said, Please know, great king, that I have come from the east, and there I saw a large country, powerful and rich, very populous, and crowded with people. There are plenty of elephant troops there, plenty of cavalry, chariot troops and infantry. There is plenty of ivory there, plenty of gold coins and bullions, both unworked and worked, and plenty of women for wives. With your present forces you can conquer it. Conquer it then, great king. What would you do? We would conquer it and reign over it, Master Ratapala. What do you think, great king? Suppose a trustworthy and reliable man came to you from the west, from the north, from the south, from across the ocean, and said, Please know, great king, I have come from across the ocean, and there I saw the country with all these riches that have just been described. What would you do? I would conquer it and reign over it, Master Ratapala. Great king, it was an account of this that the Blessed One who knows and sees, accomplished and fully enlightened, said, Life or beings are incomplete, beings are insatiate, beings are the slaves of craving. And when I knew and saw and heard this, I went forth from the home life into homelessness. It is wonderful, Master Ratapala. It is marvelous how well that has been expressed by the Blessed One who knows and sees, accomplished and fully awakened. Beings are incomplete, insatiate, the slaves of craving. Indeed, it is so. So here you have the classical case, right, of how craving is never enough, right? It doesn't matter how much you have. Here you have this great king who already has a vast amount of land, who has, gold and everything stored up in big treasuries, right? He probably has lots of wives already. This is how they used to live in those days. They had heaps of wives and all kind of things. And then when somebody says, actually, there's more gold to be had, so far you only have gold in those two storage spots over there, and that maybe you can have even more gold, right? So you have stored up this vast amount of gold. If you have more gold stored up, that's a good idea. Maybe I can store up some more gold. So then he goes across the sea, gets more gold, right? Store up some more gold, gets more land, and he already has 100 wives. But now we can have 200 wives, right? Great! You can imagine how difficult it is to have 200 wives. Or if you're a woman, imagine having 200 husbands. Is that a good idea, do you think? It's too much trouble, right? There's too much stuff, too much things going on. And if you have all this gold and bullion stored up everywhere, you have to protect it, right? You get fearful, somebody's going to steal it. If you have lots of gold everywhere, everyone around you is much poorer than you are, you want to take it away from you. So all the trouble that arise from having so much stuff. And what a terrible thing it is. But it shows you that there is no end to craving. It doesn't matter how much you have. You always want to have more. And if you rule the whole planet Earth, and you have everything on this planet, and you rule all the 6 billion people, or 7 billion people, how many there is, would you be satisfied? No way. You would still want more, right? Then you will cast your eyes on Mars, and then maybe you can conquer Mars after that, and go on like that forever. So this is the problem. The problem is always the same thing. The problem is that craving is always unfaithful to its promise. What does craving tell you? Ask yourself this question. It's a very useful question. When you crave something, what does craving say to you? What is the little voice inside you that craving is talking to you? Craving says, craving promises you, when you get this, you will be satisfied, right? And you tend to always buy into that. You will never seem to learn, right? You crave, you get something, and then it never actually happens as craving
again to more. So listen to that voice, listen to what craving says. Something inside of it tells you will be happy when you get this thing, but actually it doesn't work. And this is, again, as I was saying before, I think this is a very useful way of looking at the world. It is because we are not satisfied. There's something inside of us that is missing here. We don't feel complete. We feel that there is a lack. There is an itch which always has to be scratched. And that completeness can never come through external things, right? You can keep on building up the world outside, the things outside. It's never going to fill up that lack that is felt psychologically inside. You cannot fill that up by external things. It has to be filled up by changing your psychology instead. And this is what the spiritual path is about changing your psychology, changing your person, changing who you are, changing your character. And by finding happiness, finding satisfaction, and by doing good acts in the world, then there's a happiness inside which is different from craving. When you feel happiness because you are a good person, when you feel happiness because you are generous, when you feel happiness because you have compassion for the world, what does that feel like? It feels like you're happy now, right? It's an immediate kind of happiness. You're happy now. And because it is an immediate kind of happiness, craving is not required anymore. It's not needed. Because you already have what you're searching for. You don't need to go looking for it somewhere else. And this is the power of the spiritual happiness, that is immediate. It is here and now. And there's no need to go looking anywhere else. And that's why craving dies down when you have that immediate happiness. And look at it. Look at it for yourself in your life. Look in your heart. What does it feel like when you have that spiritual happiness? And you will see that it is precisely, it is peaceful. It doesn't have that restlessness which craving has about it. It doesn't have the agitation which always is never satisfied. It's a peaceful kind of happiness. And this is the difference between the spiritual happiness and the worldly happiness of craving. You feel complete inside of you. And this is the beauty of having loving kindness. If you practice loving kindness meditation and you take it to its peak, it is said that you feel an absolute, you feel complete and fulfilled inside. There's no lack anymore. This is the same as the deep samadhi, of deep meditation. You completely end the desire for sensual pleasures because you feel complete and you feel fulfilled inside. You have finally you have filled in that hole, that sense of never having enough, never having what is required. And what a wonderful thing that is when that happens. You're not searching for anything anymore in life. It is like as if you have found the meaning of life, right? You have fulfilled this surge that is always inside of you, always driving you around, and has now been completed. It has been ended, and you don't need to search for anything anymore. You are complete. You are satiate. You're no longer insatiate. Insatiate basically means you have no satisfaction. Finally, you are satisfied. So, that is the Rattapala Sutta for you. So, just to maybe summarize one more time what this is all about. So, all the things that I've been looking at now. Remember, I stopped, on the very first day, I stopped in the middle of this thing which is called the gradual training, and I stopped at the point of where we talked about sense restraint. It seems like a long time ago, right? We talked about that, and we've been talking about so much other stuff in the meantime, but actually we did talk about that yesterday morning, about sense restraint. And all of the things that we have been going through since then have been about how to actually be able to achieve that sense restraint. All of these things are about how to reduce our desires, how to reduce our ill will, so we can find that sense of contentment, find that sense of sense restraint. So all of these things are very useful for that. When you look at the world in this way, you don't get carried away by the senses so much more. So remember that. Remember these things. Use them in your daily life to hold yourself back, not to get carried away. Then you will have a much more peaceful, a much more satisfying life. And this is how you use wisdom to achieve sense restraint, rather than using willpower. So when you see that alluring thing, right, that beautiful thing that you can have, ask yourself, is it really going to fulfill that? Is it really going to make me happy then? Is it actually going to work out? If you think about that wonderful person that you would like to have a relationship with, is it going to work? Is it going to fulfill him? Is it going to make any difference? Usually things look much nicer on the outside. And when you really get to know that person, you know, and you understand that that person too, just like everyone, isn't perfect. There are problems, there are hindrances there. There are things in the way for making you as happy as you think you're going to be. So remember these things. And when you remember these things, you're reducing the craving, you're reducing the anger, you're reducing the problems in life, you become a better person. You become more able to be moral. You become more able to be kind. You become more able to be compassionate. And your life is kind of moving in a beautiful direction. The spiritual life takes off. And everything kind of starts to fall into place. So, that is the purpose of all this. So now we are moving towards the kind of the grand finale of this path. And I want now to return to the gradual training. We don't have that much time left. There's a little bit more time now and a little bit of time after the meal as well. So I want to complete this gradual training now during this last little bit of time that we have left. So, if you now return to the gradual training to page 2, paragraph 16, we're now going to move on to the deeper stages, the more advanced stages of this gradual training. And the next one here is a paragraph on what is called Sampajanya in Pali. And this is on what is here called full awareness. It is now translated by Wikibodi as clear comprehension, which I think is a better translation, because Sampajanya is this basically about wisdom. Sampajanya is a similar word to Panya, which is wisdom. So it is about acting with clear comprehension, with wisdom. So what this paragraph says is as follows. One becomes one who acts in clear comprehension. When going forward and returning, one acts in clear comprehension. When looking ahead and looking away, one acts in clear comprehension. When flexing one's arms and limbs, again it is in clear comprehension. One acts in clear comprehension when wearing one's robes and carrying the outer robe and the ball. One acts in clear comprehension when eating, drinking, consuming food and tasting it. One acts in clear comprehension while defecating and urinating. One acts in clear comprehension when walking, standing, sitting, falling asleep, waking up, talking, and keeping silent. So what does this mean? It's not entirely obvious what this means, right? What does it mean that we act in clear comprehension? And often this is kind of talked about in a way which makes it quite complicated. But if you look at the sutta like Majjhima Nikaya 2, which is the Sabbasava Sutta, it actually gives a fairly straightforward explanation for what acting in clear comprehension is all about. And what it is about, according to that sutta, and it's really only implied in that sutta, but what it is about, according to that sutta, is to make sure that we do what is suitable in life. We do things that actually work on the right way on the spiritual path. So in that sutta it says, for example, you don't go to places that are going to cause troubles for you. So you don't go, it's very straightforward, you don't go to places that are dangerous, right? You don't go to a place where wild animal is going to eat you, or a snake is going to bite you, or whatever. If you are a monastic, you don't go to dodgy places late at night in the city where people are going to think that you do all kind of crazy things. If you're a monastic, you don't go to the casino, etc. You keep away from places that are dangerous. This is what it means. This is true not just for monastics, but also for lay Buddhists, right? You know that if you do the wrong kind of things, your desires or your ill will is going to be it's going to rise up, right? So be you do things that are dangerous, if you do things that give rise to desire and ill will, it's going to have a detrimental impact on your practice. So you try to avoid that. You try to avoid these things. That is really what clear comprehension is about. You have a sense of wisdom about what is appropriate in the world, what is right to do, and what is not. And it really is, as far as I can see, as simple as that. So let's take another example here, eating and drinking and consuming food. So what does it mean to have clear comprehension about that? What it means that you know how much you should eat to satisfy your hunger, right? In other words, you don't starve yourself. That when you sit meditation, all you can do is think about food. Oh, I wish I had some food, I really feel hungry. You don't starve yourself on the one hand. On the other hand, you don't eat too much, so that actually leads to too much tiredness and feeling bloated and feeling unwell because of that. You find the right balance where the food serves its purpose, right? This is part of the thing, particularly on the meditation retreat that we want to do. What about wearing your robes and carrying your bowl? How do you do that with clear comprehension? This is one of the things as a monastic. You want to have a robe which just does its job, right? The purpose of the robe is to keep you from being cold or keep you from being too hot. It's to cover your body, etc. The purpose of these robes. The robe should not be a status symbol, right? I have like the Brahmali robe or something like that. If you have an Brahmali robe, I've kind of lost the plot a little bit there. But sometimes this happens in monastic life, right? You have to have that kind of robe, you have to have this kind of bowl. And it's like the requisites of monastic life become important. That is like losing the idea of monastic life a little bit. You just use the robe for what it's for. You use it to make sure you are comfortable and you are at ease and relaxed. But it should not be used to give rise to a sense of self, or a sense of importance, or a sense of comparison for others. So this is clear comprehension in regard to one's robe. It is the same with lay people, right? You don't have to be so fancy all the time, to look so wonderful, have the best of clothes all the time. Sometimes it's nice just to be ordinary. I think one of the great things about being able to go on a retreat sometimes is just to be yourself, not to have to kind of dress up and be someone in the world, just being able to relax for once, just be ordinary. Isn't that nice? And then it leads to being relaxed and at ease, essentially. And then we have the clear comprehension in regard to, it says here, falling asleep and waking up, which actually are bad translations. It actually means sleeping and being awake. So how can you have clear comprehension about sleeping or being asleep? And what that means again is that you know the right amount to sleep, right to sleep the right amount. You know when you need to sleep, you know when you shouldn't be sleeping, you know when you should be awake and when you shouldn't be awake. That's essentially what it means. So again, if you sleep too little, you feel tired. If you sleep too much, you also feel tired sometimes, right? Because you overindulge in sleeping. So you know that what you might be doing, you understand these things, you know it the right way. So this is essentially how I understand this paragraph on full awareness, that you use the things in life, you do things in such a way that they don't aggravate or defile us. In other words, it makes you feel, get the sense of balance. We don't have too much desire, too much ill will, too much ego, too much pride, too intoxicated, etc., etc. So, there's only a few minutes left of this session. It's almost 11:30. I don't think I would like to go any further, because if I do, then we will get carried away with the next part. But I think the next part is probably just about right, so we can finish it off afterwards. So let's stop there. Yeah. And you ask a question? Yeah. Okay. You can take my question probably. Yeah. Sure.
I've come across this gradual training in a number of suttas.
Yeah.
There are always two examples: moderation in eating, devotion to wakefulness.
Right. Yeah.
These are the two examples of this Sati Sampajanya. Correct?
Right, that is part of it, but there is more actually.
Yes. So which is in the second.
Yeah, if you go to Vajramantra number 2, because there it is between the sense restraint and between the abandoning of the hindrances, I think, you find a whole sequence of things that you should be doing. Yeah, so have a look at that.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Okay.
lunch. I'd like to invite everybody to participate in the alms giving, which is Punaka to Ajahn. So we have prepared the rice. If you could just make your way out to the dining hall, pick up a plate each, and then line up starting from this pillar, and then stick around, just get yourself organized. Then we invite Ajahn to receive the alms. Okay, thank you.